Now, I've already apologized to the parents over and over again.
I
don't apologize to you.
Objection.
Don't apologize to you.
Attorney Norm Pattis called it strategic.
We thought it was vicious and uncalled for and gratuitous.
But at the same time, the plaintiff's attorneys called for a recess to determine how they'd orchestrate the rest of the day.
You think I could book that for like the weekend of the 14th when the soundtrack comes out? If so, bump somebody. All right, thanks. I love you, man. Bye. I got my MTV out. Savage! I'm a savage! Oh! I'm a savage! Whatever I want, I'm going to get! Whatever I want, I have to get!
And you're confident on these cases. You don't think you're going to be behind a defendant table throughout the entire campaign, crippled and unable to campaign?
You know, if I am, it's going to show what a fake deal it all is. It's all fake. It's all just fake stuff.
Do you want it televised?
In order to interfere with the election. This was election interference at the highest level.
One person responsible for this nightmare, and he's acknowledged and he brags about it, Donald Trump.
Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce traveled with the president. Good morning, Mary.
2020 rape conviction against former media mogul Harvey Weinstein was thrown out by New York's highest court today.
Now to another big headline. Arizona's governor plans to sign a bill today repealing a 160-year-old abortion ban.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Patriot News Hour with your host, Joshua Capilla, the independent with conservative values, fighting the liberals, protecting the homeland from terrorists, domestic and foreign. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop. We're going to tell the truth. They want to suppress the information. They want to spread the lies. But we're holding everyone accountable. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Patriot News Hour. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's your host, Joshua Capilla, live here from the Patriot News Hour, fighting all enemies, foreign and domestic. I got my pedal to the metal. It's your microphone Marine getting the job done, ladies and gentlemen. So I want to have a conversation with all of you. There's a lot going on right now. I mean, we are on the verge of an all-out war, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people are concerned. We don't know what's going on. A lot of people are scared. We're getting advice, can you believe it, from China now, stating that Israel is the aggressor and they're out of control. We're getting advice from Putin now saying the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. How hypocritical is that? Two nations, one warring with Taiwan, well, about to war with Taiwan, one that's already moved into Ukraine, committing mass genocide, now giving us advice. But I want to make something clear. I voted for Trump, and I am not particularly a fan of Trump. I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. I was never a fan of Kamala Harris. I wasn't a big Bush fan. I wasn't a big Clinton fan. Reagan did a lot of things right. It's hard for me to be a fan and laud on a politician knowing that the game is rigged, that the deck is stacked. Does that mean that we don't vote? Absolutely not. We vote to keep our politicians in check and to keep tyranny at bay. But I'm not happy with a lot of things Trump does. Now, some people might listen to the show and go, what about Biden? I would respond the same way and say, what about Biden? Because Biden is no longer in office. And of course, I'm going to talk about Biden and talk about some of the things he did. I have no problem doing that at all, ladies and gentlemen. But right now, I want to talk about Trump. There's a military parade going on. Some individuals in CNN and even Fox says the money can be better well spent. Some said it's a power move, politicians say. to demonstrate America's supremacy and military prowess and power. Others say that it's a move like Xi Jinping, King Jong-un would make, and it's a move that a dictator makes. Regardless, I don't know the president's intentions, and I want to say something that I believe it's a little bit of all of it. But I do want to say he does do some great things and does things right, like repealing the EV mandate. And of course, Elon Musk threw a big old fit. He wants to cut all these jobs, 17,000 plus federal jobs, and then he wants to bottom feed on the American taxpayer and get rich off government contracts. I took a lot of heat for that. I'm not a fan of Elon. I've never been a fan of Elon, especially when it comes to his transhumanism. Not a fan at all. But before we get into a discussion about Trump and the judges and wanting to deport Americans, I do want to give him some credit on the EV mandate and play a audio soundbite. So, ladies and gentlemen, I only got one question. Are you ready?
The California Auto Regulation, CRA, it's been a disaster for this country. And I want to thank everybody for being here. We officially rescue the U.S. auto industry from destruction by terminating the California electric vehicle mandate once and for all. Under the previous administration, the federal government gave left-wing radicals in California dictatorial powers to control the future of the entire car industry all over the country, all over the world, actually. Because they have to build a car. They can't build 19 different cars called the same thing. And really, it was all over the world what was happening. They approved Governor Gavin Newsom's ridiculous plan to impose a 100% ban on all new gas-powered cars within a very short period of time. Think of this. You couldn't buy any other car except an electric-powered car. And in California, they have blackouts and brownouts. They don't have enough electricity right now to do the job. And countrywide, you'd have to spend $4 trillion to build the firing plants, to be able to, they call them a lot of things, charging plants, firing plants. $4 trillion you'd have to spend. In the Midwest, they built 9 of them. 9 individual, it's like a pump, just like a pump, except instead of gas, electricity comes out. They built 8 of them. $9 billion they spent for 8 little hoses, $9 billion. This is a plan to ban, think of it, a plan to ban 100, and they call it the 100% ban on all new gas-powered cars and abolish 75% of the gas-powered trucks. 75%. The trucking industry saw me. They said, sir, it doesn't work. Number one, the trucks are so heavy. They're 2.5 times heavier than a diesel-powered truck. So one of the big truckers owns 28,000 trucks, big company, tremendous company. He said, I go out of business immediately. I'm not going to play games. I mean, he said, did you explain these things to the government officials? Like the truck weighs 2.5 times more than a regular truck, a gasoline-powered diesel. And he said, based on that, we have to rebuild every bridge in the United States of America because it wasn't designed to hold cars and trucks that heavy because the batteries are very heavy. They're, probably lead. But they have a lot of things in those batteries that weigh a lot. But it's 2.5 times. It's a simple number, 2.5 times. And if you want to do this, you have to spend trillions and trillions of dollars on rebuilding every bridge in the United States, and I guess throughout the world, because they do follow us. I'll sign 3 pieces of legislation that will totally kill. You can't do anything about it. They can't take us to court. They can't do any of the things they can do with the executive orders. And it's permanent. I'll sign 3 pieces of legislation that will kill the California mandates forever, and they're never coming back. Now, the auto companies are the most happy because now they're going to be designing and building one auto. It will be much cheaper. It's a much less expensive. Your cars are going to cost you $3,000, $4,000 less, and you're going to have what you want. And again, you can get any car you want. You can get electric. A lot of people love the electric. They like Tesla. So do I, in all fairness. I like Tesla. And I like others too, but I also like combustion engines.
Ladies and gentlemen, so there you go. You have it from Donald Trump. And I want to read an article, and this article is from 6/11/25 by Mario Lopez. And the title of this article is Governors Should End California's Ludicrous and Harmful Electric Vehicle Mandate. And I'm just going to read a little bit of this article, a couple of excerpts. In the Biden administration's waning days, the Environmental Protection Agency granted California permission to implement an electric vehicle mandate that several other states adopted, despite the economic turmoil it would create for American consumers and businesses. In granting a waiver to implement California's Advanced Clean Cars 2 regulations, the EPA attempted to clear the road for other states to go beyond existing federal regulations and sign on to California's pledge to meet escalating annual electric vehicle sales quotas that effectively ban gas-powered and conventional hybrid cars by forcing zero-emission vehicles to compromise 100% of all new car sales by 2035. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me stop right there. This mandate is absolutely crazy. So I do applaud Trump on stopping this mandate to take choice out of the consumer's hands and force the consumer to buy electric vehicles when the things burn. You got to drench them in water, bury them in sand. The batteries are super heavy. They're not environmentally friendly. These things literally cause an environmental catastrophe forever. And so there's a lot they're not telling us about these cells. Once these cells catch on fire, it's just a domino effect, and the thing becomes like a bomb. In a sense, it can light on fire or it can actually explode. So to take choice out of our hands is absolutely 100% ridiculous. And we don't even have the power grid infrastructure to even handle a mandate like this. It would cost upwards of trillions of dollars to even implement this. So this is not a good thing, including the situation where the government wants to even regulate our speed. So we have to fight a lot of things here. We have a lot of totalitarian policies under the Biden administration, and we have them in the Trump administration. And this pendulum of swinging very far to the left and very far to the right is a concern of mine. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't think someone will do it for you, that is why here on the Patriot News Hour, I am a conservative, an independent with conservative values, I should say. But let's continue on. In response, Congress recently passed a Congressional Review Act measure to revoke the EPA waiver that gave California effective permission to ban new gas and hybrid power vehicles. Notably, 35 House Democrats and Senator Elissa Slotkin, that is the Democrat of Michigan, joined with Republicans in voting to repeal the waiver. President Donald Trump should waste no time in signing the Congressional Review Act resolution into law, despite California's promise to challenge Congress's authority to rescind the waiver in court. But like Trump said, this is a bipartisan effort. Regardless, some Democrats passed the aisle, and this cannot be repealed and cannot be challenged in court. So thank God that we did not enter this age of this mandate that would burden and make all Americans suffer. And he's right. You got all these little things on these vehicles that don't make sense. This automatic shutoff, which we have one on our vehicle, and it's just absolutely useless. Doesn't really save anything, and it becomes an absolute nuisance. So I do want to talk about the Iran war, but there's so much more to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. One thing that I do want to talk about
is Trump's idea to deport American citizens. So let's just pan over to a soundbite and hear what Trump has to say on this issue. I only got one question, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready?
President Trump hosted the president of El Salvador at the White House today amid an ongoing legal fight over a Maryland man the administration admits was mistakenly deported and sent to a notorious prison in El Salvador. Late last week, the Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to facilitate the return of Kilmar Brego Garcia to the United States. But the Department of Justice insists the federal courts lack the authority to make that demand. Sitting in the Oval Office today, President Bukele, who has emerged as a key ally in President Trump's deportation effort, said he will not release Abrego Garcia from El Salvador's mega prison.
The question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
And during that meeting, President Trump also took his mass deportation agenda one step further, suggesting he's looking at deporting American citizens who commit violent crimes.
We also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country.
President Trump was talking about so-called homegrown terrorists. Do you think the president is actually realistically considering deporting American citizens here?
Well, I just spent the last couple of hours talking to legal experts on that very issue, and, it's pretty clear that he can't do this under existing law. Mm-hmm. The whole immigration laws, when they talk about deporting people, they're not talking about U.S. citizens, right? They're talking about immigrants who don't have legal status in the U.S., and you'd have to completely rewrite all the laws and also raise a whole bunch of constitutional questions for that to ever happen.
Lawrence, I want to play some of what Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff at the White House, said earlier today in the Oval Office. Let's listen.
The Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the president could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13.
And we should know that the administration has not provided any real evidence that Abrego Garcia is a member of MS-13. His family denies it. There was an immigration judge that said he may have been affiliated with it several years ago, but that was based on one allegation. Point is, what do you make of the administration on how they are interpreting the Supreme Court ruling? They just said 9-0 in their favor.
Yeah, so, it's a bit more nuanced than that. Mm-hmm. The decision, we think, is unanimous. The court didn't actually say what the vote was. Mm-hmm. The court said very clearly that, they accepted the idea that he was wrongly deported to El Salvador, which everyone's sort of acknowledged until today. Mm-hmm. The court also said that the judge was correct to say that the U.S. government should try to make efforts to bring him back, to facilitate his return. The point that Stephen Miller's focusing on is the other part of the ruling, which says, that the courts can't impose upon the president's powers to conduct foreign policy, which is a core presidential power. And that's what he's focusing on in saying that they're kind of throwing up their hands and saying they can't do anything. But, they're basically trying to drive a truck through the gap that the Supreme Court left.
So what does happen now? The administration and President Trump today, he keeps saying that he respects the Supreme Court. They're not saying they're going to defy the Supreme Court, but they keep making these interpretations that appear, at least some legal experts, the ones that I've talked to and you've talked to, they appear to, have said this. Where does this go from here?
Well, the question, it's going to continue in the district court, and the judge, who has been pretty strong on this against the government, can obviously, if she thinks they're defying court orders, she can try to do something about that. But of course, the case could end up back at the Supreme Court at some point, and then the justices could, if they want to, kind of push back against what the government's doing. But so far, with all the cases that have come up to the Supreme Court so far involving the Trump administration, they seem very reluctant to confront him head on.
Lawrence Hurley, our Supreme Court reporter. Thank you so much, Lawrence. Really do appreciate your time.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I am really concerned about what's going on in this country. I mean, for crying out loud, I don't know if the guy has to do anything with MS-13, but maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But the problem is President Trump, when he says something like, I want to deport American citizens. You simply can't do that. By being born in this country, you're covered by the Constitution, and you have a set of rights bestowed upon you as a citizen. You have the right for due process and to be judged by this country. Now, some individuals are thinking, this is a great thing. This is a great idea. Get the worst of the worst out of here. But what happens when you make it a constitutional amendment and you keep making constitutional amendments? You can go so far down the rabbit's hole with changing and metamorphosizing the law. You can send a felon, anybody that's a felon, deport them. And then it becomes a money making racket scheme that you're paying other countries and reducing your costs to imprison people in America. So the corporations will get a hold of this. They'll just be making money off it more than they do. It'll be like a prison mill. It'll be absolutely atrocious. So I disagree with Trump 100%, vehemently disagree. And, when he said he wanted to basically remodel, in a sense, Alcatraz, well, hell, do that. Let's send the worst of the worst to Alcatraz. All these criminals shouldn't have this many rights. How do you form gangs in prison? How do you let them communicate? How do you let them run outside criminal organizations from the inside? I could tell you how. They have too many rights to be able to perform these in-prison institutions and form these gangs and then terrorize the public on the outside. It's absolute 100% ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. So as an American, let me repeat this. Hell no, I don't want to deport Americans out of the country. That is the worst idea ever. It's totalitarianism, it's authoritarianism, and it will put our Constitution and our country in danger. And I praise God as a Christian that we have the three branches, the judicial, executive, and legislative. And the judicial system is pushing back with a lot of Trump appointed judges, and it's heavily conservative. So I'm glad that they are upholding the rule of law and pushing back against Trump. Listen, when I go to Mexico and I see the federales everywhere, which I don't go down there much, it's uncomfortable. The last thing I want to see as an American is military pouring throughout our streets. Now, do the governors of these sanctuary cities have some complicity and some responsibility to exasperate the situation? Absolutely they do. They let the cities burn to the ground. I mean, Tim Walz, for crying out loud, let a police station and the city burn to the ground as they step back and they preach tolerance. Well, what about all the law-abiding citizens, the businesses, the destruction of the community, the property, the people getting killed? What about Chaz, ladies and gentlemen? Do we remember Chaz and what happened in Chaz? That was an absolute 100% disaster, what happened in Chaz. Even Stell Bell in the background's not happy. She remembers that day because we were watching it on TV. So there's a lot of things going on right now, ladies and gentlemen. And we have to be very, very careful. And I want to talk about Elon Musk also and the situation going on with Elon Musk and that fight. That was not a small fight. That was not a puppet show. That was not orchestrated. That was not theatrics. That was absolutely 100% a real fight because these two ideologies were clashing. So I want to talk about a little bit of Elon Musk, and then I want to go directly into Iran because right now we're facing a potential strike by China because actually China uses Iran as their proxy to attack the United States of America. So we are in extreme danger in this country. We are in World War III right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I urge you to have faith, believe in God, repent for your sin, and put all your hope in God because mankind is hell-bent on destroying each other, civilization, and our country right now as we speak. So let's pan over to a clip of Joe Rogan talking to the FBI director, and we will add some commentary after that. This is going to be real interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the end of the world. The dictators are going mad.
To drop the really big bomb, Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That's the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day. Jesus Christ.
I'm not participating in any of that conversation
What
between
is he?
Elon
Have
and
a
Trump.
nice day, DJD. Someone should take his phone away.
They're going back and forth about different things. And
yeah.
Well, he said he was disappointed in Elon.
Yeah, he told him to leave.
Jesus Christ, that's a crazy thing to say. How does he know? Does he know that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files? Or does he have access to the Epstein files?
I don't know how he would, but I'm just staying out of the Trump-Elon thing.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, Kash Patel, he's the director of the FBI. This is what I mean. How does he not know what is in the Epstein files? A powerful individual like him. This is the problem with drinking the Kool-Aid on the right and the left. To this day, people are going to make excuses and say things like, oh, it really doesn't matter. And it amazes me as a Christian man, as a broadcaster, as a fallible and errant human being myself, when I ask people simply about the morality of their politician, whether it be Biden, Kamala Harris, Trump, Obama, Clinton, you just name the president, the person on the right or the left always say, yeah, but the other person. Can you imagine that defense in court when you commit a crime? I believe American morality in this population has lost its way. I truly believe that based on the responses I get when I try to have a pure intellectual conversation. I'm an American. Listen, Donald Trump is my president. Whoever is my president as an American. And I don't oppose them or hate them, but my job as a journalist, as a news anchor, as a theologian is to hold these individuals accountable, to admonish them when they're not doing the right thing, and to praise them when they're doing the right thing. But don't you kind of find it conspicuous, all these pictures of Donald Trump popping up with Epstein? And everybody has an excuse for their party. Ladies and gentlemen, the deep state, the corruption, the Rothschilds, the Bilderbergs, I mean, Bohemian Grove. Do I got to say anything else? So we have major, major problems happening. I thought you would find that interesting. Look, we're running short on time. We try to do 30-minute segments. So I was going to talk about Elon. I'll start the next show talking about that. Is transhumanism, throwing a big fit, what that fight is about. But we really need to get to Iran, because this Israeli-Iranian conflict is just going to destroy the world. An entire block in Israel was completely decimated, destroyed, buildings coming down, people dying. The Iranian people, at least half of them, are happy that this strike is happening. The Ayatollah, they want him gone. They want the regime gone. They want these draconian Sharia laws gone. There's no economic hope or prosperity. People want to be free of Tehran's evil. And Israel said that the whole thing will burn to the ground. So there's so much going on, and I want to get to some news about what's going on in Israel. And this Iranian conflict is going to destabilize the entire world if it goes far enough. Gas prices are going to rise exponentially. We're in a global economy, and we can't get away from that. Even if America chose to isolate, what good would that do with trade and global security? It would do no good at all. This is what happens with fallen human beings and a race to proliferate nuclear arms, weapons, and technology on Earth and in space. There's really no way to get out of this until God makes it right by Jesus coming back. So there's a lot of problems we're facing. So let's pan over and see what the hell is going on in Israel and Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
Some of the missiles Iran fired at Israel got through the country's defense systems. These are apartment buildings in a city south of Tel Aviv. Tehran launched 2 salvos of airstrikes on Friday evening. That's according to the Iranian Fars news agency. Sirens in Israeli towns and cities were the signal for residents to head to bomb shelters. An apartment building in central Tel Aviv, not far from the defense ministry, was hit.
We ran to the parking lot -5, so five floors below the ground. We have a protective room in the apartment, but we decided to just stay low. Like after a few minutes, we just heard a very big explosion. Everything was shaking, smoke, dust, everything was all over the place.
Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, says Iran's leaders crossed a red line by firing at civilians and says they will pay a heavy price. On Friday, Iran fired fewer than 100 missiles, according to Israel's military. It says most were intercepted or fell short. There were further waves of airstrikes on Saturday. This was over Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank. Iran is retaliating for a series of strikes by Israel on Iran on Friday. The Natanz uranium enrichment site was one of the main targets.
At Natanz, the above-ground part of the pilot fuel enrichment plant, where Iran was producing uranium enriched up to 60% uranium-235, has been destroyed.
In the early hours of Saturday, heavy smoke was rising above Tehran's domestic airport. A local news agency reported a blast in the area. On Friday, Israel had launched attacks that killed Iranian military commanders and several nuclear scientists and damaged military and nuclear sites. Supporters of the Iranian government celebrated the retaliatory attacks on Israel.
We expect from the authorities that as we support them, they should also support our presence so that we can destroy Israel with solidarity.
We will continue to give a crushing response with the support of our people, our leader, and our brave soldiers.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his objective is to remove Iran's nuclear and ballistic missiles threat. But he told Iranians, "We are also clearing the path for you to achieve your freedom," an indication that Israel wants regime change. Bernard Smith, Al Jazeera.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have to keep asking yourself, what the hell is going on? Humanity is having an outcry to destroy each other. This is not good. I don't take any pleasure out of any human being dying and destroying a population, an ethnic group, or a cultural mandate to destroy people. Now, I want you, as my audience, to understand something. This is not good. I'm not one of the Americans that say bomb them all, kill them all, destroy them all. That's not what God wants. Now, Israel has a right to defend itself. A lot of innocent people have died in this Hamas-Israeli conflict. It's a disaster and a terrible situation that is ensuing right now. And so I'm not a pro-war individual. I'm an anti-war individual, but you got to protect your nation at the same time. And I really, truly, 100% understand that. I'm not against Donald Trump and Israel trying to get a hold on Iran, because Iran, their leadership is a very, very, very evil country. But the problem is China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are all in cahoots. And I want to read a little bit of an article here, ladies and gentlemen, by Christian Atlas. And I want to read this, and this is from June 13, 25. China could strike us amid Israeli-Iran conflict, Gordon Chang warns. Iran being set back on its heels by Israel means nothing is off the table for China and its military advances, according to one foreign policy expert. The Chinese, they're losing their proxy, Iran. Iran has been accomplishing China's foreign policy goals for quite some time, and China's Middle East policy is now in disarray. Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang said on Barney & Co. Friday. This is a point where China is suffering a terrible loss in the Middle East, he continued. It is not going to take that lying down, referring to China, and it's probably going to get Iran or some other party to strike us. Overnight Friday, Israeli Defense Forces launched a sweeping strike on Iran following months of attempted and seemingly failed nuclear negotiations. So that's a excerpt I wanted to read from this article, ladies and gentlemen. And we do have to understand something else. The fentanyl pouring through China, the scientists that they're exporting to Mexico, making 1 billion fentanyl pills a week and making them look like candy so they can serve them to the communities in America and try to poison and destroy America from the inside, sneaking the biological weapons in, possibly creating the COVID virus in the Wuhan lab. And speculation goes so far to even say that China is creating another bioterrorism weapon, sending spy balloons, the race to space, mining H3, helium 3 to power their quantum computing, to crack every single code on the planet instantaneously, and that H3 will cool the quantum computing down. That way they can use it because it runs so hot. And there's open source material that shows China retrieving the H3. I just ask myself, how the hell is this earth going to survive when everybody is on a path of destruction? There's a lot going on. Space weapons, gravitational propulsion systems, UFOs, whether they're extraterrestrial or government made, contractors worth trillions of dollars, advanced space technology. There's a lot going on. Quantum communications, teleportation. We're going to actually play some clips from the Sean Ryan show in the future on the next show to talk about all these things and open this show up to an array of information. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, it's 37 minutes. I want to say God bless you. I'm going to be signing off. Remember, I'm an independent with conservative values, and do your thinking for yourself or somebody will do it for you. God bless you all. God bless the United States of America. Happy Father's Day and have a great day.